Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2022 Opportunity Agriculture Finance webinar. Welcome, everybody. Before I start, I do want to point out to Peter Nelson that I've got the iconic 1971 hat that he gave me. And Chris Crane, my predecessor in this role and long time friend, a special welcome to you, to our board members. As I thought about how to kick off this community time and our time together, my mind goes back to Opportunity's long-standing 50 years, and Peter's 1971 cap was a reminder that Opportunity has been doing what it does, helping the poorest of the poor build livelihoods, educate their children, and build better lives for themselves, standing on their own 2 feet for 51 years now. And when we were planning this webinar, especially focused on smallholder farmers, the part of the work that in some ways is relatively new to Opportunity, going rural and going down market to smallholder farmers, about a decade to 12 years old. We got into this as a reminder to us all for one principal reason, is that of the poorest people left now, people earning less than $2 a day, $1.97 a day on the planet, about 700 million people left, down from about 2.2 billion, when in the late 80s and early 90s. 460 million of those 700 million people are African smallholder farmers. In some ways, we would argue the poorest, the most endemic, and the most underprivileged and marginalized communities in the world. So when we started this planning for this webinar, we were at that time thinking we're coming out of COVID and preparing now for the next sort of crop cycles and seasons, our work of releasing capital to serve these farmers. And Tim Strong's going to talk about it, the massive deficits, how do we close those? What we were not prepared for was war in Europe and the consequent rapid increase in commodity prices, in input prices. What I was not prepared for, and I just recently returned from Uganda and Kenya just about 3 days back, 2-week trip, was the continuing impact of COVID-19 on the communities that we serve. It's not over there. It's not over at all. It's still there. So as you listen to what our team has discovered in terms of best practices, how to rapidly extend wraparound services to farmers, how to rapidly extend financing to farmers, come alongside them to build livelihoods. That conversation to me is in the context of one of my good friends now, a farmer that I had met 4 years back, Millie, who, when I'd met her, was doing very well, going from strength to strength, a widow, if I remember right, 7 children and 17 grandchildren. This time when I met her, and less than a week back, we were sitting on the compound on the ground, and she didn't want to look at me. And we finally found out that she had to essentially mortgage her entire crop of 1 year to the local money lender to take a loan to pay for her son's education because nobody else was willing to give her money. That's the reality that as we enter this conversation, I have in mind, and I hope you do. So with that, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, our head of agricultural finance globally, Tim Strong, and his group of people that he's assembled from across the planet. Tim himself has lived in Lilongwe, Malawi for, I think, 14 or 15 years with his wife. We are thrilled to have you, Tim, and I'm sure you'll introduce the others on the call. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Atul. And as you said, greetings to everyone from Lilongwe, Malawi, and thank you for joining us today. Just a quick logistics note on how we'll work. In a few minutes, you'll hear from some of my outstanding team members as they share about the exciting advancements in our work, and then we'll open up for a Q&A session to the end. So please submit any questions in the chat box at any point throughout the program, and we'll address them during that section. So let's dive in. I want to start by giving a brief overview of our agricultural finance program for some of those who are new to Opportunity, to help you understand our model and the impact it has on our clients. For those of you already familiar, I invite you to share in the chat what you love about this part of our work. But ultimately, ending extreme poverty requires addressing small-scale agriculture, as Atul mentioned, where 89% of sub-Saharan Africans living in poverty are actually in rural areas, and most of them depend on small-scale farming for their income, meaning that the weight of Africa's food systems relies most ironically on the people who can barely afford to feed themselves. Interventions must start here. And this is really the driving ethos behind our agricultural finance model, with the driving vision for us being one of rural prosperity, where farmers increase production, income, and employment, where farmers themselves act as the key agents of change in building thriving rural households and communities. Rural poverty in Africa, without a doubt, is an incredibly complex and dynamic tapestry of interwoven challenges. But most initiatives to reach small-scale farmers, even multidimensional ones that address the challenges of rural support, still exclude people living in poverty, women and youth. Take, for example, farmer field schools. This is the most common instrument for engaging farmers in the entire world, and yet globally still only reaches between 400,000 to 1 million farmers per year. And this is really ultimately insufficient to reach the number of small-scale farmers living in poverty, even if farmer field schools were specifically targeting poor farmers. Opportunity work focuses on two key levers to offer a substantial hand up to farmers. So one, increasing the capital into agriculture through targeted interventions to support local financial institutions to lend to farmers. And this is important, noting that annually there's a $26 billion gap in farmer financing, just in sub-Saharan Africa. Second, support quality farming. So this is the wraparound services that Atul mentioned, through digital training, market linkages. In short, all of this in summary, working with farmers to grow more and to get more. So in April, Opportunity International was published in a peer-reviewed journal about the effectiveness of different programming approaches, particularly our principal channel for supporting quality farmers, our Farmer Support Agent Network. So this is really locally community-based lead farmers, armed with digital and standardized tools, and I would say most importantly, armed with their own positions as community leaders. So for us, this is an answer to a number of questions, but notably the first question, how do we serve farmers that are traditionally out of reach? And secondly, can we really build a scalable and replicable solution to serve these farmers in a meaningful way, noting the scale of the need that Atul mentioned? So here to present on some of the highlights from this research is one of the authors and Opportunity International's Senior Research and Knowledge Manager, Mary Pat McVeigh.
Greetings, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. In the journal article that Tim mentioned, we focused on comparing two approaches to farming. The first is a more traditional approach in which a company contracts farmers to grow crops for them. The company provides all the inputs and training and purchases the crops afterwards. But the farmers are required to pay money up front and to own a certain amount of land, something not viable for farmers living in extreme poverty or for women and younger farmers. In addition, as Tim mentioned, there's a scaling issue here. In the traditional approach, for example, farmers anywhere within the red circle would have to travel to the spot in the middle to receive services. As you might imagine, many farmers can't travel that far, or if they can, it takes a lot of time away from their actual work at the farm, and, especially for women, their domestic responsibilities. This approach limits how many farmers you can serve and which farmers can be served. For example, 95% of the farmers in this model in our research were men, who typically own the land and have greater flexibility in terms of time and ability to be away from home. In this article, we compared this traditional approach to the opportunity approach, which we refer to as high-tech, high-touch, and high-impact. Using this model, we leverage technology and people, specifically local expert farmers. Local expert farmers to serve as what we call farmer support agents, as Tim mentioned. They basically provide linkages to capital and wraparound services to other farmers. The farmer support agents are members of farming communities who are trained by Opportunity and equipped with technology to help share their knowledge with their farming communities, especially more vulnerable farmers. Farmer support agents also refer farmers to local providers like banks for getting loans, providers for inputs like fertilizer and seed, and equipment suppliers. These farmer support agent approach is participatory, it's engaging, it's respectful. The process opens avenues for empowerment and agency and prosperity. And one of the best things about this approach is its scalability. Every point here represents a farmer who receives training from the same farmer support agent. Look how many more farmers can be reached with little to no travel and far less time away from farms and families. As we know, women's time is at a premium because they're responsible for so many household duties, so this approach is much more effective at engaging women. Also, we do not require land ownership, further opening opportunities for women and also young farmers who typically do not own land. So, when we apply our approach to the same region you saw a few minutes ago with the one blue dot in the middle, now look at how many farmers you can reach with farmer support agents. But it's best if you hear about the farmer support agent experience directly from them. Some members of our team visited Barbara last week, and I'd like to share her story with you now. This video is hot off the press, so in case the captions are blurry on your screen, you can read the video captions in the chat box.
Nze mukyala Nakampi Barbara. Kusookera ddala baatusomesa emisomo ne tulondebwa nga ba farmer support agent mu buli cooperative. Era ne tudda wansi ne tusomesa balimi bannaffe. Mu misomo egyo mwalimu okusomesa abalimi ennima ennungi ey'omulembe, okusalira, okunoga, okubikka, era nakati bakola bulungi era ekirime kyabwe ky'emwanyi bakifunyeemu. Opportunity International yatusomesa ku financial literacy era bwe yamala otusomesa ne tweyunga ku Opportunity Bank ne tutandika okwewola n'okutereka nsobole okulima emmwanyi nga business ate era nsobole ogirima nga ngifunamu. Ekirala Opportunity Bank yatuwa amasimu nga kuliko emisomo egyo gyonna era gatuyambye nnyo kubanga galiko buli kintu kyonna kye twetaaga okumanya naddala mu misomo nga tusomesa bannaffe. Twasurveyinga abalimi bangi nnyo naye nze nina survey abalimi 148. Abalimi bafunye school loans okuva mu Opportunity Bank ne baweerera abaana baabwe era nze omu ku bo afunye mu school loans kubanga nafulumya dda omwana ku university ate nakati ninayo ali mu second year omuganda wange naye ali ku university naye ebyo byonna lwaki lwa Opportunity Bank. Amangu ddala nga mmaze okuweerera njagala kuzimba amaka amalungi ageeyagaza, njagala n'okwongera okugula ettaka nga liri ku kyapa niyongere okugaziya ebyenfuna byange. So nebaza Opportunity International olw'ebyo byonna bye yatukolera neetuwa amagezi ate era netugatta ne ku bank tusobole okwongera okufuna ku loans, tusobole okwongera ku kirime kyaffe ne tusobole okukifunamu.
Now that you've seen the kind of person that we engage and the impact it can have on their lives, let me tell you more about the high impact part of our approach. Our research found that, in comparison with the traditional approach, Opportunity's approach reached far more people living in extreme poverty. In fact, 72% of our clients were living on less than $1.90 a day. This is exactly who we want and need to be reaching. Our approach also reached far more women and youth. 57% of clients were women and 40% were youth. And finally, our approach led to more farmers to increase their harvests and increase their incomes. A link to the article will be provided in an email to you following this event, and I invite you to read it to dig further into the data of the research and gain a deeper understanding of Opportunity's AgFinance approach. For now, I've asked a few expert colleagues from the team to tell us more about some of the interventions that help us make this model a success. Here with me today is Luke COULSON, the Director of Client Services for Opportunity's Agriculture Finance team. So Luke, can you share with our audience a little more about the digital tools that farmer support agents use to better serve marginalized farmers?
Sure. Thanks, Mary Pat, and hi all. It's great to have this opportunity to share some of the digital solutions that we have been working on with you. Our objective has been to overcome some of the historical bottlenecks that have limited our ability to facilitate broad-based access to affordable financial services for rural communities. A very big challenge has always been how can we work with our financial institution partners to reach rural clients in a cost-effective manner. These clients are often well off the beaten path and are generally accessing small microloans with very low profit margins on these products. And therefore, being able to deliver financial services at low cost is critical for both our clients as well as the financial institutions we're working with. The Farmer Support Agent strategy was developed as a way to overcome a number of these bottlenecks. It was designed to ensure that rural agricultural clients received a range of support services such as effective training on good agricultural practices, financial literacy, and farming as a family business. These trainings are delivered in conjunction with access to high-quality agricultural inputs, which are provided on loan. And through this approach, farming households are able to maximize their profitability. By selecting trusted community leaders to act as these farmer support agents, and by empowering them with technology, we have been able to effectively reach, screen, and deliver tailored financial services to rural clients at very low cost. In addition, these agents use their digital tools such as tablets, smartphones, and various applications to deliver digital training content, as well as useful updates on current market prices and local weather conditions to their clients. This is done in an effort to improve their productivity and profitability. A core component of our approach is using a specific application run on smartphones that Opportunity provides to our farmer support agents. This application has proved to be a very cost-effective methodology for managing dispersed rural farmer groups. What you're seeing here is part of the training module, which allows Opportunity to share a variety of training topics, and then the farmer support agents can assess what their farmer groups would benefit from learning next and schedule those topics so that they're ready for the next training visit to these client groups. They also use this application to register farmers into the program right on their farms, to track individual client progress over time, such as training attendance and adherence to recommended good agricultural practices. It's also used to monitor each farm's crop production, as well as to share content such as training videos, audio files, and other digital training documents. By engaging farmer support agents to capture a range of quantitative and qualitative variables, using this tool, we have been able to categorize the credit readiness of rural client groups, and we have worked with our financial institution partners to facilitate access to affordable financial services for these clients. This means we are now connecting the clients who need us most with financial services that are actually tailored to their needs. One other pilot we are currently working on with the farmer support agents is using satellite data to help us further monitor farmers' fields over the course of the growing season. Satellite imagery is becoming increasingly accessible, and it allows us to quickly identify fields that are experiencing specific challenges. So, for example, farmers growing soybeans who experience prolonged dry spells or disease such as soybean rust have often fields that turn yellow when other farmers' fields are still green. Identifying these cases, farmer support agents can respond quickest to those farmers in dire need of support. It should be noted, however, that digitization and technology are not the silver bullet to unlocking access to financial services for rural populations. However, they are certainly a crucial part of the solution. And are critical to ensuring that clients can access the financial services that they need to be profitable farmers. Thank you, Mary Pat. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Luke. I've also brought on the line today Tamsin SCURFIELD, our Gender and Partnerships Manager. Tamsin, as I've shared, the opportunity approach is very effective at serving women. Can you share a bit more about how our AgFinance work targets and empowers women?
Sure. Thanks, Mary Pat, and greetings to everyone from Kampala, Uganda. So at Opportunity, we approach and incorporate women into our work, not only to reach more people facing poverty, but also to have a higher impact. We've already heard how many farmers in Africa contribute towards farming globally, and 60% of smallholder farmers in Africa here are women. We know that if women had access to the same agricultural support as men, they could increase their productivity by 65% in some instances. That's a phenomenal number. And in short, what does this mean? It means more income. It means women being able to choose where they spend their money on access to nutrition for their children, on healthcare, and on education. Even me right now, as a result of the rising food prices, I think everybody's seeing right now globally, and fuel, I'm also having to change my shopping habits. I'm trying to plan more for my little boy's education, and I'm being more intentional about where I shop. And I've never really done that before. And to be honest, I think now for myself, if that's me in Kampala, how much more are these food prices affecting our clients and the choices that they're having to make over providing fees for their children and meals for their households. So let me just share a little bit about the types of interventions that we deliver in AgFinance, because typically when people talk about agricultural finance or serving households, a lot of the training, the support, the financial services even will go to the oldest male in the home, the head of the house. And at Opportunity, we take a different approach. We found that it's better to concentrate on households as a unit. So by working with both men and women together to promote male involvement as we educate our clients and also our staff, the gender is not just a woman's issue, but it's a societal, it's a cultural, and it's a family issue. And ultimately it affects everybody, as well as financial literacy, agricultural training, and linkages to the bank. We offer peer-led training using farmer support agents like Barbara that you saw in the video to deliver something that we call farming as a family business. This is a really interesting approach that looks at gender roles and social norms. It asks questions around what does it mean to be a man and a woman? What are the characteristics of a successfully functioning household? And how can they cooperate? How can husbands and wives cooperate and work better together to achieve greater growth, more income, and achieve these household goals? And this training itself, it's not a kind of a social impact training. We combine it and we deliver it specifically with financial literacy content, which has been given to us and regulated by the regulator in country. So,
apologies all. I'm going to go ahead and jump in for Tamsin on that. I think she's been struggling with some network connectivity in Uganda, in Kampala tonight. So Tamsin, I'm going to also steal one of your quotes that you shared with me earlier on this from one of the farmer support agents that Opportunity has been training these farmer support agents since November last year. And a quote from a client: "I used to overwork on both the farm and at home. So no matter how busy I would be at home, my husband used to come and look on as a boss. And he believed all domestic work was meant to be done by the woman." And she said, "This weakened me more and more. But now he also helps with housework. He also takes care of the children. Now we've budgeted and we plan together. And so to Tamsin's points that she was making earlier, many of the clients that we're serving, they've now improved their record keeping and ensure that all expenditures and income is captured, which has helped them to expand their businesses together as a family unit. And we also find ways to promote and empower, where feasible, women and female leadership in a peer-to-peer methodology. So using the method of farmer support agents like Barbara, who you saw in the video, role models, having women serving women, power in women talking to women, women serving men. It's just phenomenal for us to see this as it moves forward. So we also support our financial service partners to segment their clients and deliver products that are specifically suited to women's needs. Might mean lower or no collateral, but really the use of female loan officers and agents, voice as opposed to written text messages, to better suit lower literacy clients, both local and appropriate methods that intentionally seek out and serve women according to where they are. So I think at this point, Tamsin was going to pass back to me. So if you guys will give me some permission to continue on my side. Tamsin, hopefully I represented you well and that you're back online. But ultimately,
this is live. There we go. Thanks, Tim.
Perfect. Thanks, Tamsin. I think what we really want to share today on this webinar is really what we've learned about reaching people in extreme poverty in rural environments and rural communities. First and foremost, this should have been a no-brainer for everyone working in this issue. Start where the target population actually works. Start with the target population and help them move from where they are to their next steps on their journey to rural prosperity. From a poverty eradication perspective, there is absolutely no point in expanding rural finance unless it actually works for the people who need it as a tool to escape poverty and inequality. What we've learned about the role of innovations have to occur for both technology and human engagement. Innovations are central to both the high-tech and the high-touch aspects of the model. And the major innovations are needed to advance scale and financial viability to address the major poverty challenges, especially during this COVID era in Africa. And ultimately, it's also your support that has allowed for this innovation. We've now been able to expand farmer support agent networks from these initial pilots in Uganda and here in Malawi across our operations for our agricultural finance program, ensuring that some of even the most isolated farmers in the world, even those in Northern Democratic Republic of Congo in the Gemena area, are now receiving best-in-class support and wraparound services and linkages to financial services. So many on this webinar are aware of the Waymakers campaign that we've been really pushing to make sure that we can make a dramatic impact in terms of the service provision and scale up to some of the most neglected communities where we serve. Again, if you're moved or inspired by what you heard today, you'd like to make a gift, you can do so by clicking the link shared in the chat box. So now I'm sure that you've all had a lot of questions. So just a reminder that you can enter your questions into the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. The questions are being sent to me in a separate window. So that's great to see they're already populated for me. And again, I warned my team, Mary Pat, Luke, and Tamsin, that sometimes I'm not the best position to answer some of these questions, so I might throw some of them back at you all. So feel free to jump in. The first question that's coming through to us is, how much does it cost to have a farmer support agent in the field? So I think in the videos and in the overviews, everyone was seeing there's a smartphone that's being used, an Android phone. There's an app with licensing and subscription fees. Additionally, equip many of the agents with bicycles to make sure that they can travel between farms. And all in all, this has been quite a journey for our program and for our organization as we've been expanding our farmer support agent network approach. So doing my best not to bury the lead here. When we started down this journey about 8 years ago with farmer support agents, it cost us roughly $54 per farmer per year. to offer this level of support services. Year on year, through advances, operational efficiencies, and an awful lot of negotiations by our finance and our operations teams, we're now sitting at roughly $12.80 per farmer per year. And we're working towards a target of really seeing how we can get that down to $6.80 within the next 3-year horizon. And I think many would ask, why $6.80? Why are we targeting that? For me, what's really phenomenal is that if you divide that by 365 days in a year, that means that we're serving farmers for 2 pennies a day. We're excited about ongoing innovations and looking at how we can have that again and make it down to 1 penny a day. But that definitely requires a lot of support from a lot of much more brilliant people than we have just on our team. But it's really an exciting phase for us. We're also looking at cost sharing with our financial institution partners, cost sharing with agro dealers and other commercial partners. And most importantly, Luke has just finished a series of willingness to pay evaluations from farmers themselves that have been supported by farmer support agent networks. And they've estimated that if we were able to bundle the service provision into the cost of a loan, they'd be willing to pay roughly $4.80 a year. So nearly taking up 2/3 of the overall cost. So for us, this is really an exciting time as we're continuing to expand this model that Luke, Tamsin, and Mary Pat have shared. I've got another question that's come through on my side. This is a hard one, and Atul, you started, I think, in your intro discussing this a little bit as well. Will the Ukraine wheat shortage have an impact on smallholder farmers in Africa? Look, I think Tamsin touched on this as well. We're seeing very substantial cost of living increases across the world, but very much in Africa and rural Africa as well. We're seeing substantial both from COVID-19 and the pandemic, as well as from the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and other regions around the world, a astronomical increase in the cost of fertilizer. Since before the pandemic, the combination of COVID-19 and the unrest in Ukraine, we've seen an increase of fertilizer prices by 280%. So putting that into perspective, something that's 60 to 70% of your business's overall operational costs were to jump up that much, what would that do to such incredibly thin margins already? Good news on our side, as Atul mentioned, we've been on the road and out in the field quite a bit over the last few weeks, and we were also challenged to ask the farmers themselves that question as well. How are the fertilizer prices? How is Ukraine affecting them? And it's definitely my pleasure to be able to report back that many of the farmers, despite definitely noting the increase in input prices, many of the farmers that this model has allowed us to reach are many that are working in nitrogen fixing crops like soy, like peanuts, that no longer require external inputs and fertilizers to be able to achieve a meaningful yield. And Atul, I saw you came off mute. Did you want to jump in on that question?
Absolutely, Tim. So I think, what I just say to the community is that what we have noticed, I have personally, is the hammer always falls the hardest on the poorest. That's a truism that has held true for eons, for thousands of years of humankind's life here on planet Earth. And that's happening right now. In a nutshell, that's you've got fuel prices going up, input prices, seeds, fertilizer going up. There is no public support available in most of the places that we work. Where it is, it does help. As an example, India, we could talk about that at a later date, but not so much in sub-Saharan Africa. And as a result, everything finally shows up at not the desk or the table, but the field of the smallholder farmer. So that's one. But I think, Tim, I'm going to segue to a different question on climate change. And I know, you're a big proponent of regenerative agriculture, which actually in some ways speaks to how to tackle the commodity price increases as well. So could you briefly touch on that? Because I know it's a very relevant topic for this team, this community.
Certainly, thanks, Atul. And what I'm actually going to do is fulfill my promise or threat to my team that I would throw them under the bus with a couple of questions. Luke, I know that you're more than competent and able to start the discussion around what can opportunity really do to help smallholder farmers cope with climate change. I'm going to put you on the spot, Luke.
Thanks, Tim. No problem. Thanks, Atul. So, interestingly, climate change is something that is genuinely affecting our farmers. It's increasingly being noted as a cause for concern. So extended dry spells, particularly in Malawi, where we have one wet season every year. Areas we're focusing on, where we are incorporating into our input packages, drought-resistant varieties of crops. Of course, there are trade-offs in these decisions. So usually those types of crops which may handle dry spells better usually have slightly lower yields than some of the more traditional varieties. We are incorporating into our training modules the principles of conservation agriculture and climate smart agriculture. We're trying to get our farmers to increase the levels of organic matter in their fields to be able to retain moisture during these dry spells. That being said, there's costs to those activities and time, effort, etc. But there are farmers who are seeing the benefits of participating in or implementing climate smart principles. And we are using our farmer support agents to share stories of farmers who have implemented these activities and interventions, and to get their voice as to what benefits they have seen. So a lot of peer-to-peer communication. Our training is very much sort of taking that approach, trying not to be prescriptive and explaining to farmers that we understand there are costs associated with doing these different interventions, but we try to, in cases where farmers have done them and have benefited, to share those stories with our other clients under the farmer support agents. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Luke. I'm going to read a few more questions. As those are loading, Luke, I might add one additional point under your response. As our program, we work on two major channels. One, supporting quality farmers, which is precisely what Luke was talking about. On the other hand, we work directly with financial institutions. So when it comes to the role of finance in climate variability, in climate change, we're just thrilled around the potential to use social financial or local financial services as a nudge for behavior change. And really looking at what are the models that we can build to further incentivize farmers. We did an analysis a few years ago that even converting a smallholder farmer's cocoa farm in Ghana for higher yielding varieties, for more drought tolerant varieties, represented an 8-year return on investment for those farmers. And honestly, for these farmers that we're serving that are really on such thin margins, that's just not feasible. So for us right now to be able to be working with the risk and sales departments within a financial institution, with their treasury department, to look at how do we further incentivize that pro-climate resilient behavior within farmers is just absolutely thrilling to me. Let me see if there's more questions coming through. Sorry for the pause all.
Oh, no. Tim, I think there were two questions. One around what is the typical increase in crop production? Yeah, and I know you work in multi-crops in multi-countries, so that might be a difficult question to answer. It's very contextual. The other was on what are our directed, if you will, interventions? How do we design and deliver specific interventions?
Yeah, sure. So Atul, I think your point there was very astute. As we're meeting farmers where they are, that increase in yield and increase in profit is highly variable. I don't want to misquote my team at the moment, so I can share that I think there's definitely some very compelling statistics within the peer review journal article, which I believe the link is in the chat window. But for us, it's, At best, at the moment, we can very much give you very specific numbers on the percentage of farmers that have increased their yield and the percentage of farmers that have increased their income. We're currently launching a fully fledged dual monitoring and measurement system to be able to get, for that very specific question, which is critical for us, the actual dollars increased at a household level and the actual kilograms per acre in terms of yield increase. So since it's a very complicated question, but what is really thrilling to me, and Atul, you saw this with me in the field live, farmers know how much they made and they know how much they're going to make year on year. We directly asked a number of farmers, and they could even list back from memory 3 years in the past, both market prices and the number of bags of their crop that they harvested. So for us, it's really fantastic to be able to see them reporting directly the changes that are happening on the farm level.
What would be the kind of percentage of number of farmers percentages who would typically see an increase?
Mary Pat is our impact or knowledge management person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just even a range would be good to understand. Yeah.
So in a recent study that we did on our program in northern Ghana, over a 2-year period, one of those years was in the middle was a drought. So, but we had over 20% of farmers had increased their productivity by 30% or more. But overall, over 80% of farmers had some kind of increase in productivity in spite of COVID, drought conditions, really challenging circumstances. So that's an example of a recent study that we've done.
Thanks, Mary Pat.
And what we're looking at in terms of market by market, just support, and apologies, I wanted to make sure I wasn't misquoting our research. We're seeing roughly about based on the market, 57% increase in farmer yield, a 64% increase in income. And to boot, what's really thrilling for me is seeing across a number of markets and a number of different studies, over 9 jobs created or sustained per individual smallholder farmer through those efforts. So apologies for the stutter and slow response on my side. I always want to make sure that we're diligent with the numbers that we say.
Tim, which countries are we currently active in?
All right, let me unmute.
Yeah.
So active countries for our AgFinance portfolio are here in Malawi, next door in Mozambique, moving north into Uganda, Rwanda, DR Congo, which is our recently open portfolio, which is really thrilling for us, and Ghana. And then in the next 3 years, we're targeting expansion into Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and looking at a possible replicatable model in Colombia that our friends in Colombia can own and operate and manage themselves, which is really exciting for us.
And I'd say again, as our board has looked at the question of where to go and how to go about doing this work, our focus has been on going deeper in the places that we are and seeing bigger impact there, learning the lessons. As you'll notice, our response, our design is really based on having local banks extend credit. So it's not your funds from our donors and supporters really go to helping us, enable the local banks extend credit. And secondly is to work both our staff and local partners in providing wraparound services, building a distribution system, farm support agents in this case specifically. So that takes time and effort. So if we stay focused on a few places, we believe that we'll have more outreach and better impact. So that's been, that's been the approach that we've chosen and will continue in the next few years. Very grateful, of course, for both your support as well as major corporations in the U.S., John Deere, Caterpillar, and I could go on and name quite a number. USAID more recently has stepped in with substantial support, which really for us is both a shot in the arm, but as well as that our model works. Some of the most technically sophisticated funders in the world, partnering with them speaks to that. We learn and we contribute in that. So it's so that's. I hope that answers the question on where and how and our the philosophy that sort of guides our engagement.
All right, so I'm hearing from our administration, we've got time for one last question, question 7. Looking at, do the agricultural trainings cover livestock and animal raising? So I love that one. Personally, I think for those that know me, I'm very personally involved in livestock rearing myself. For us, this is one of the key tenets when we look at regenerative agriculture. It's making sure that we're engaging livestock into the farm for farm use. So without a question, that's really critical. We also have direct financing portfolios to support livestock, notably in dairy, as well as cattle rearing, and a significant amount of outreach and support when it comes to small ruminants like goats and others. So this is really a critical piece that I see as a component for our support. In many ways, when we look at the household economics of a rural household, livestock can really be perceived almost like a localized savings account. And to be honest, even from my personal experience, the yield on livestock can outperform the yield on a deposit almost any day of the week if there aren't outstanding issues. So before I get too carried away talking about the goats and chickens and rabbits in my backyard, which Atul knows is always a risk, I might just look at kind of some of the closing remarks for the webinar and making sure that we know Atul has a personal story he wanted to share at the end, and we're coming up to our time. So ultimately, we are absolutely so grateful for your support. And as mentioned, I'd like to welcome back Atul to close our time together today. Atul Tandon?
Thanks, Tim. Thanks. Always a joy to work with you in person or on webinars. And thanks as well to Mary Pat, to Luke, to Tamsin, and those of you who pay close attention to accents. You quickly recognize that we have a global team, based in many different parts of the world coming together to do this work, for which personally I am most grateful and excited. It truly is a joy to serve alongside them, as it is to be here with you. As I think about our time and I want to close our time, I started with reminding myself and all of us about Millie's story, where she is at a crossroads, and our commitment to stand with her and work with her. Equally, the farm support agent who you all and we introduced to you, Barbara, I spent time with Barbara on this trip as well. And, her story, which I think bears repeating and reminding ourselves, is about now 10 years back. Barbara was, had lost 2 husbands. And had obviously children from both marriages, grandchildren. With the loss, found herself at a crossroads. She was now working as a helper on someone's farm when she came across opportunity. 10 years later, when I met Barbara just 9 days back at her farm in Mityana, Uganda, we have an opportunity zone where we are bringing together a fully integrated set of services in Mityana. Agricultural finance, education finance. We have a branch that's been funded by our donors, extension wraparound services. In those 10 years, from being a helper, Barbara has now gone to being truly a role model smallholder farmer. She is our farm support agent there, has about, if I remember right, about 7 hectares, multi-crops, as well as livestock that Tim just mentioned. But not only that, has educated, raised a family, educated her children, grandchildren. She was recently elected, democratically elected, as the parish executive for her parish. The parish is the Ugandan equivalent of a county. So here I am sitting next to a person who started as a helper on a farm, as a farm laborer, who is now a farm owner 10 years later, growing her own crop and selling it. Not only that, she is now a farm support agent, and she was so proud, 148 women in her group. And she meets them all, if I remember right, she told me, I meet them once a week, we all get together. Now, I think beyond, farm practices, I'm sure they do a lot of cooking and eating and celebration together. But Barbara has not stopped there. When Opportunity introduced the idea of a co-op, that the local farmers needed to get together so they could aggregate their crops, sell their crops, and get a better price for those crops. We finance the co-op. Barbara is as well the general secretary of that of the co-op. So you're looking at this person who's gone from farm laborer to county executive to the general secretary of the co-op, training her other, in her case, sister farmers. And I asked her, and we were sitting on I don't think we were photographed. It's on my phone. I couldn't show it to you, on a little bench in her courtyard on the ground. And I asked her how life's been as I'm leaving, how life's been. She looked at me, and proud lady with a big smile on her face. And she said, life is beautiful. I have no stress. And friends, I'll close with that. If we can all end the day in the evening, look in the mirror and say, life is beautiful and I have no stress, that is what the Bible calls an abundant life. So thank you so much for your time together. Thank you so much for listening to us. I hope this has been educational and informative. I hope as well it's been something that not only expands our minds and hearts, but wants to get us more engaged in coming alongside some of the poorest people on the planet, giving them a hand up, and knowing that some, if not many of them, will graduate to lives that are beautiful and with no stress. So thanks so much. Take good care, be safe, and stay in touch. Bye for now.